Hello everyone, I welcome you all at Smarty Education. Today we have to start with lecture number 2 of Indian Constitution. I hope that you have watched lecture number 1 of Indian Constitution. That was an introductory lecture, so I just suggest you to go and watch lecture number 1 if you have not, and if you have, then you are a good student. So today we have to start with lecture number 2 of Indian Constitution. So let me begin with the lecture, but before starting the lecture, let's have a very motivational quote so that you will be motivated in the whole lecture. If not now, then when? What do you mean by if not now, then when? Means we have to do all the things in present, dear student. If you don't watch the video now, then when will you watch the video? If you postpone it, then it will be called procrastination. So please watch the video now, make your future now. Okay, so now let's begin with the lecture. So we have to continue with right to education. So what do you mean by education? Education, something which a child takes to achieve success, and right to education is governed by Article 21A. So according to Article 21A of the Constitution of India, the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of between 6 to 14 years in such a manner the law may determine. So whatever the law will say that you have to give the education to children between 6 to 14 years, that will be compulsory, because we know education's value. That's why you have enrolled in CSEET. Okay, now the next thing is right against exploitation. In right against exploitation, there are only two articles, Article 23 and Article 24. So in Article 23 and Article 24, both are very different and easy to remember. So let's first of all, let's see Article 23 of Indian Constitution. So Article 23 of Indian Constitution prohibits trafficking in human beings, and beggar and other similar form of forced labor are prohibited. Of any contravention of Article 23 shall be offence punishable in accordance with law. So what do you mean by Article 23? You know that human trafficking is illegal, human trafficking is very illegal, bad act. So Article 23 says that when you are forcing a child, for example, this child has been forced to do the work of begging, then this will be the violation of fundamental right against exploitation, and he can file a writ and can be saved with the help of police if he goes to police. Okay, now Article 23 is quite opposite. Article 23 you force someone, but Article 24 says that even if the children says that I want to work, and he is below the age of 14 years, then that will be called as right against exploitation, and the owner will be caught. So no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine or engaged in hazardous employment. So below the age of 14 years, remember Article 24 says that you cannot employ your children for the hazardous employment, whether it's his need. Now let's talk about right to freedom of religion. So first of all, let's get to understand that what is a religion. So in simple terms, you get to understand that religion is something that a person follows by his or her own will. Maybe their parents give this religion to be followed in their whole family. Maybe this is culture. Okay. So in India, the population is quite big, 137 crore, we know that, and since the population is quite big, and constitution makers know that there can be conflicts among religions. So right to freedom, that you can practice any religion as per your will. Right to freedom of religion between Article 25 to Article 28 was being established in Indian Constitution. Okay, so let's first of all talk with Article 25. What does Article 25 says that? So Article 25 says that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience. Okay, all persons are equal freedom to conscience, and the right to freely profess means you can practice any profession. You are not restricted until and unless you are breaking any reasonable thing in the name of religion. For example, you are making the bomb attacks in the city. Okay, so that will not be called as that you are freely practicing religion. Means there should not be any prohibition of public policy. As you all know that every fundamental right is absolute and quoted with certain strict restrictions. Okay, now let's see Article 26. Article 26 says that denomination can manage, means religious gurus can manage their own religious affairs, means they can manage their own religious affairs. Government cannot intervene in their religious affairs. Okay, now let's see Article 27. According to Article 27 of the Constitution, there can be no taxes, means you cannot charge. For example, there is a Hindu rally and the government cannot charge charges on it in the name of tax, because it is related to religion and may cause public conflicts between the government and the religious people. Therefore, Article 27 says that there can be no taxes. Okay, now let's talk about Article 28 of the Indian Constitution. So what do you mean by Article 28 of the Indian Constitution? Talks about freedom of attendance. For example, you need to attend the puja, you need to attend the Christian prayers, you need to attend Muslim namaz. Okay, anything. Whenever you have to attend any religious meeting, you can attend it under Article 28. But you will definitely ask, sir, in lockdown no one was able to get out of their houses. So that's why I told you that every fundamental right is absolute and is detailed with certain restriction. Means government with suitable restriction can break your fundamental right and can restrict your fundamental right in the emergency conditions for the protection of country. Okay, now let's talk about right to constitutional remedies. So first of all, get to understand that what do you mean by remedies? Remedies basically means solution, and Article 32 will cover right to constitutional remedies. Let's see. So Article 32 guarantees that enforcement of fundamental right, it is remedial and substantial in nature. So whenever someone's fundamental right is violated, he can directly move to Supreme Court under Article 32 and High Court under Article 226. With appropriate proceeding, that someone doesn't need to exercise other remedies and necessary writs can be issued against that. So whenever someone's fundamental right is violated, remember someone's fundamental right has been violated. For example, on the basis of your religion, examiner didn't let you enter in the examination hall because of your religion. So you went to the court under Article 32 Supreme Court and under Article 226 to High Court. Okay. With the appropriate proceedings, that examiner can be punished. Okay, so these writs, what do you mean by writs? Writs means something which can be issued against a person. So following are the writs: habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, quo warranto. Don't worry about these terms. I'm going to explain you all of these terms in deep in the upcoming slides. So note. So what is the note, sir? Apart from this, Article 12 will deal state and Article 13 will deal with law respectively. And remember, right to property was also a fundamental right under Article 31, but due to 44th constitutional amendment, it didn't no more a fundamental right, it became a legal right. Remember, as per 44th constitutional amendment, it came, you get out. He said, you get out, just get out from my fundamental rights and you have to become legal right. Go and join that association. Okay. So now let's talk about fundamental duties. So what do you mean by fundamental duties? So first of all, let's get to understand that Article 51 will cover fundamental duties, imposes the fundamental duties on every citizen of India. These fundamental duties are follows. But before continuing fundamental duties, let me tell you what do you mean by fundamental duty. So duties means which are expected to perform. For example, the income tax officer will raid on a house, it's his duty. So fundamental duty means related to a nation, that you are expected to perform for your nation. Let's discuss some fundamental duties that are very important for you. So first of all, so in whichever nation you will to abide by the constitution, respect its ideal and institution, the national flag and national anthem. So that if you are an Indian, you have to respect the national flag, you have to respect the national anthem. That is the fundamental duty which is expected by you, because you are living in the same country and you cannot oppose the country. That's why it is written in fundamental duty. If you try to oppose it, you will go to jail. Okay, then the second one is to cherish and follow the noble ideas which inspired our national struggle. For example, to respect our great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi ji, Jawaharlal Nehru ji, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, to uphold the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India to defend the country and render national services which are called upon to do so. To means that whenever someone terrorist has entered into yours and you have informed the police instead of helping him, that will be called as fundamental duty done by you, because you have tried to protect the nation by calling the police. Okay, then the next one is to promote harmony, spirit of common brotherhood amongst all people, means you should not let any riots going on in your city. So transition religious, linguistic means discrimination on the basis of your language. For example, you speak Hindi and all the English speakers are just making fun of you. That will not be expected as per fundamental rights. Sectional diversity to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. Whenever there is a respect of women, you should respect women as they are key to our nation. Okay. So then the next one is to value and preserve our composite culture, means we should always respect our culture and rich heritage. We should protect our environment like lakes, rivers, wildlife, and have no compassion for living creatures. Means we should not kill any living creature. Okay. Then the next one is to develop the scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of inquiry and reform, to safeguard public property, to strive toward excellence in all spheres of individual and collective. Means we should constantly contribute in the growth of our nation. Now let's talk about concept of citizenship. As you know that 137 crore is our population. So first of all, let's study the definition of Aristotle. Okay, Aristotle. Okay, the state is a compound made of citizens, may all know that, and this compels us to consider who properly should be called citizen. In all of them, who would be called a proper citizen? Who is a native, who had come from foreign country, who belong to any other country. Okay, the nature of citizen is like that of state is a question which is often disputed. There is no general agreement that a single definition will define the citizenship. For example, there is a man who was born in this land. He will only be called as citizen of that country. No, it will not, because if someone else person will live as a foreigner there for so many years, then he should also be called as citizen. Yeah. Okay. The man who is citizen in a democracy is not often in an oligarchy. So in this definition, you just get to know that what is a citizenship. A state is made up of citizenship. Who should be called as citizenship? It was defined by Aristotle. Okay. Now let's talk about an important concept. Okay. Articles related to citizenship. So the first thing is that you have to remember that Article 5 to 9 of the Constitution determine who Indian citizens at the commencement of the Constitution are. So there were so many Pakistanis and Indians at the time of partially dividing the India and Pakistan. So Article 10 provides for the continuance of whether the continuance for the citizenship as the previous act will continue to exist made by the parliament, and Article 11 entrusts the parliament to regulate the right of citizenship. For example, you have all heard about citizenship related to CAA, Citizenship Amendmentship Act. Okay, and NRC, that was very quite big decision that we don't have to go in deep in that. Okay, but just remember that Article 11 will regulate the parliament power to regulate the citizenship. Okay, the Legislation Act Citizenship 1955 will cover the legislation related to citizenship. All the laws related to citizenship will go into the Citizenship Act 1955. Then the next one is Article 5. Article 5, citizenship at the commencement of Constitution. Let's discuss Article 5 in the deep. Article 5 provides that who will be called as citizen of India, who was born in the domicile territory of country, who was born in the territory of any territory of India, either of whose parents are married and born in the territory of India. Okay, now let's talk about a very great topic, Parliament of India. Okay, a parliament consists of House of People and Council. First of all, parliament will consist of House of People and Council of State and a president. Lok Sabha is known as lower house and Rajya Sabha is known as upper house. Okay, so what do you mean by this sentence? I mean, this will be called as lower house and this will be called as upper house. Okay, now you all must be wondering, sir, we are always hearing the word called president. How the president is being elected? Let's get to understand that, So first of all, President must be elected by both houses of parliament, and second of all, president must be elected by member of legislative assembly. So what do you mean by member of legislative assembly? These members are known as MLS. Okay, these members are known as MLS, which are directly elected by the people. Same as Lok Sabha people, Lok Sabha election winners are also won by public, but Rajya Sabha election are indirect election. That means Lok Sabha people will vote for them. Okay, now let's talk about powers of a president. Which powers are being exercised by a president? But let me tell you, president is more powerful than a prime minister. Please don't troll me, because it's the truth. The first power related to president is that administrative power. President has power to implement the law with his own will. Means president, whenever the president will sign the law will came into the force. Otherwise the law will not come into the force. The second powers related to president is military powers. So what do you mean military power? For example, we have to strike to another country, then the president permission will be required. Okay. Legislative power. So what do you mean by legislative power? I is tuning of propagation of the legislature. Legislature means who make the law, and against that, if a wrong law has been made, then president can issue some kind of punishment against that corrupt legislature. Judicial power means president can grant pardons, reprieve, etc. to person convicted of crime. So what do you mean by this? I think for example, there is a great bank robbery, let's say of 200 crores. Okay, and the person has been caught, and the person to get the bail, the person will have to contact president to give him the bail. Okay, the most powerful power of president is to promulgate ordinance under Article 123 when it not a parliamentary enactment. So what do you mean by this statement? It states that Article 123 states that when the parliament is not in any session, the president can still pass a law on the advice of the committee. Okay, now let's talk about Rajya Sabha. First of all, get to understand that in Rajya Sabha, 12 members are to be nominated by the president who are skilled in art, literature and social service, and from state and union territory representative must not exceed 238 members, and maximum strength of Rajya Sabha is 250. Maximum strength will be 250. Let's talk about Lok Sabha, which is also known as lower house. In Lok Sabha, representatives are elected from direct election. Two members are to be selected from Indian Anglo community, and maximum number can be 550. To remember, maximum strength in Lok Sabha can be 552. Okay, in which 530 members will represent the state, and 20 members will represent union territories, and 2 will be from Indian Anglo community. Okay, now let's talk about Council of Ministers. So what do you mean by Council of Ministers? Let's get to understand that. Council of Ministers means there will be a group of ministers as you are seeing in the picture. Okay, so first of all, there should be Council of Ministers. First of all, Prime Minister is to be appointed by the President, and then on the basis of Prime Minister recommendation, President will select another minister from elected winners. Okay. So first of all, Council of Ministers means including Prime Minister, there will be a bench which will advise Prime Minister. Okay, and it should not exist 15% of House of People, means Lok Sabha's capacity should not be existed here. Okay, so now there will be a term called legislature, and you will have to read this term. So before going to that topic, let's understand who is a legislature. So a legislature is a word that comes from Latin language, meaning those who write the laws. A legislature is therefore a group of people who vote for new laws, for example in a state or a country. Now let's talk about constitution of legislature in a state. So in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, okay, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh are all having two houses. Okay, so what do you mean by two houses? Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. But in a particular state, there will be the two houses called Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. Let's get to understand that in deep. Okay. Where there are two houses, one should be called Legislative Assembly, that's what I called as Vidhan Sabha, and one should be called as Legislative Council, means Vidhan Parishad. In other state where there is only one house, it will be called as Legislative Assembly. So what do you mean by all these terms? For example, in a state, whenever you have to make the law, you have to go to the parliament of that state. Okay. So in that state, in some state like Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, there are two houses in which the bill has to be passed to enact a law in a particular state. The Legislative Council should not cross limit of 500 and should not be less than 60. And total number of Legislative Council should be 1/3 of the Legislative Assembly and should not be less than 40. Okay. Remember the state's name because MCQs can be asked from this topic as well. So now let's talk about who is a governor. We are studying who is a we all have at some point of time who is a governor. Governor has made this law. Okay, in a state, a governor serves as the chief executive officer of a state. Main job duty of a governor is to work with legislature to ensure that needs of the states are met through oversight hearings, new law established of long-term goals and priorities. So governor's purpose is to So what is the purpose of governor? The governor's purpose is to enact acts for the welfare of a particular state. Okay. Now let's talk about some key points related to a governor. The same governor can be appointed for more than one state. Okay. The governor is appointed at the will of a president. Okay, at the will of president, governor will be appointed. The governor possesses executive, legislation, judicial powers same as the president, except that he has no diplomatic or military powers like a president. Okay, the governor's power to make ordinance is given under Article 213. In simple manner, when the have the forces of an act of legislature when the houses are not in session. The next power related to governor is in following cases before passing a law, the governor has to gain the consent of president. These are the following cases. If a bill contains the same provision required previous section of president under constitution, means that if the consent of president is necessary, you have to contact the president. If some kind of permission is reserved for the president for the consideration of the president, then it will be called as consent of the president is necessary. The third one is an act of legislature containing same provision but require consent of president. Okay. Now let's talk about a judiciary. So first of all, get to understand that what do you mean by judiciary? Judiciary basically means justice. So there are three justice bodies which are available for everyone: Supreme Court, High Court, and Subordinate Court. So let's study Supreme Court. Supreme Court entertains appeals in civil and criminal and other cases from high courts and certain tribunals. It has also jurisdiction for fundamental rights. It can advise the president on a reference made by president on a question of fact and law. The Supreme Court is considered a superior court. The maximum strength of judges in Supreme Court is 34. Okay, so what do you mean by Supreme Court? First of all, get to understand that Supreme Court is the highest superior authority to get any decision related to. For example, you have all heard that Supreme Court versus CBSE. So in Supreme Court was the highest body. So the parents directly approach the Supreme Court. Okay. Now let's talk about High Court. High Court means that function under the Constitution were not when the Constitution was not even created. High courts were established. Some High courts existed before the Constitution. Also, some new High courts have been created after 1950. Before the Constitution came into force, High courts were already established. The High Court in India was established under High Court Act 1861. The remaining high courts were established or continue under the Constitution under Special Act. High courts for each state have appellate, civil and criminal jurisdiction over lower court, means lower court decision can be challenged in the High Court. High courts have read jurisdiction to enforce fundamental rights and for certain purposes. It should be added that the read jurisdiction vested at the present in all High Court by the Constitution was before the Constitution came into the force, vested only in the High Courts of Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. Means rules to read jurisdiction before the Constitution came into force was vested in only Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. High courts can only exercise read jurisdiction against a person. Now let's talk about subordinate code. Subordinate code means includes civil codes created mostly under the Civil Codes Act, like law of tort, and criminal codes are created mainly under the Code of Criminal Procedure. Subordinate codes are always work as a lower court. Okay. Then the next one is civil courts. All the civil case in each district, there is a district court presided by the district judge with the number of additional judges attached to the court. Below that, courts are court of judges, sometimes called subordinate judges. In some states, municipes, the court are created under state laws. For example, there will be a district and some district court will be set up by the state government for the justice of citizens related to civil breakage. Let's talk about executive magistrate. Executive magistrate do not try criminal prosecution and their jurisdiction is confined. Means executive magistrate will operate in a lower level and it cannot go beyond its limitations to certain miscellaneous cases which are of importance for public tranquility and the like. Okay. Now let's talk about criminal courts. So criminal courts in India is primarily consist of the magistrate and the court session. Magistrate themselves have been divided into the Code of Criminal Procedure and executive magistrate, judicial and executive magistrate. Okay, just remember two things not to be studied much more. Now let's talk about justice magistrate are of two classes, second class and first class. Judicial magistrate are subject to control of the court of the session, which also itself in a court of original jurisdiction, and the powers vary according to their grades. Means justice magistrates mean there will be two classes of judges, second class and first class. Magistrates are subject to control the court session, which also in some big cities including the three presidency towns Ahmedabad and Delhi, and the magistrates are called metropolitan magistrates. Means in a state high court will to be there and the justice magistrate will to be there. You don't have to go deep in the concept, just have a basic idea that there is a second class, first class in the justice magistrate. And the last one is special tribunals. Special tribunals mean there are some special courts for a case. For example, NCLTL will cover all the company related insolvency cases. Besides these courts which form part of the general judicial sector, like they're related to direct tax, labor court, custom court. Okay, there will be court for each matter. So you just have to remember that for a specific case, if there is a specific case for a court, then it will go under special tribunals. Now let's talk about a very important topic named types of writ. Most students find it very difficult to understand writs, but I am going to explain you in such a easy way that you can understand types of writs. The first one is habeas corpus, means violation of personal liberty and detaining someone's body without any kind of legal power. If you are detaining someone's body and kidnapping him, it will be called under habeas corpus and writs can be issued against you. Writ of mandamus means is an order from court which directs a government official to do the right thing. For example, if someone has not done your task and he was a government official, court can direct him to do the task as stated by on his own duty. Okay, the writ for prohibition. Prohibition is a very important, means to forbid or to stop. For example, stay ordered on a property. The writ is issued when we try to challenge lower court decision on a property matter in high court, then you cannot do anything to that property. It will be called in the stay order. Then the next one is writ of certiorari. It means that challenging inferior court decision in the Supreme Court or any other higher court to have a proper consideration on the case. Then the next one is quo warranto. Quo warranto means to writ a legal action requiring a person to show by what warrant an office or franchise is held claim. For example, by what authority the officer came into your house. For example, if he has a authority of police, then he can always go to your house. Now let's talk about some major constitutional amendment. Look, for amendment you have to revise the amendment in a weekly time so that you don't forget the amendment. The Constitution First Amendment Act 1951 came, added 9 schedule to protect the land reform and any other law. Okay, added 3 more grounds of restriction, freedom of speech, expression. Okay, also made the restriction reasonable and justifiable. That's what I'm talking in the lecture. Empowered the state to make special provision for the advancement of socially and economically backward classes. Then the fourth one is Constitution Second Amendment Act, means a single member could represent 7,50,000 persons. Now let's talk about Constitution 42nd Amendment, very important. It is also known as mini constitution. It was enacted to give some effect at the recommendation of Sovereign Singh Committee. Added 3 1 socialist secular integrity. Then the third is added fundamental duties. new part 4A made the president bound by the advice by the law of government that president has to take the advice before making any decision of the cabinet. Added 3 new directive principles: equal justice, freedom, legal aid, participation of workers in the management of industries. Now Constitution 52nd Amendment Act 1985. So what do you mean by this? Thus, this amendment is popularly known as anti-defection law, means provided for disqualification of a member of parliament on the basis of Constitution 52nd Amendment known as anti-defection law on the grounds of defection added to the 10th schedule, means any member of parliament can be removed under this act. Now let's talk about another constitutional major amendments. Another means will include a 61st Amendment Act 1989, means reduce voting age from 21 years to 18 years for the Lok Sabha and State Assembly elections. Then the next one is Constitution 69th Amendment Act 1991 accorded a special status to the unitary of Delhi by designating it as a national capital. For example, Arvind Kejriwal is there for a Chief Minister of Delhi. Okay. Now let's talk about Constitution 17th Amendment Act 1989 provided for the inclusion of the members of the legislative assemblies of National Capital Territory of Delhi. Okay, now let's talk about Constitution 84th Amendment. The number of seats in the Lok Sabha and Assembly are to remain same still 226, means no increase in the seats will be there according to 84th Amendment. Now let's talk about right to education, that was called under 86th Amendment. Education is a fundamental right. Article 21A will cover it. Now let's talk about 91st Amendment, means that Council of Ministers should not exceed 15% of the total strength in the Lok Sabha bracket. Article 75 1A. Now let's talk about Constitution 101 Amendment Act 2016, means goods and service tax has commented with the enactment of the 101st, means good and service tax has been introduced under 101 Amendment of the Constitution. Article 246A, 269A and 279A were added in the Constitution. The amendment made changes in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. Now let's talk about Constitution 102nd Amendment Act 2018, means Constitution status to National Commission for Backward Classes. Inserted Article 342, which empowers President to notify the list of socially and educationally backward classes in the whatever the backward classes are there in the Union Territory. It will be given a special status. Now let's talk about the last amendment, and very important, it changed two fundamental rights, Article 15 and 16, that 10% of reservation, means there is a right called equality in public employment, but this is an exception to that. 10% of all government colleges seats will be reserved like SC and ST outside the high income bracket. 10% reservation will be given. Okay, so that's it for today's guys. I hope you find the video helpful. If yes, please give it a big thumbs up. I worked very hard, and in the description box of the video you can find the notes links, and in the lecture 3 we will only solve MCQs. So I can say that the Constitution has finished here. So I hope you will subscribe the channel, and please like the video. That's it for today.